I remember my first day arriving in Australia, and as you would expect, I headed straight to the beach. And I had a bit of sun cream with me, but I realised I was getting burnt after like 10 minutes of being on there. And it's because I bought the sun cream from home, which is only like factor 15, which is all I ever really needed in a British summer. But in Australia, you need factor 50 pretty much every day. If you're like me and you're prone to getting burnt, you will get burnt within like 10, 20 minutes of being in the sun. And I know Australians grow up with like the rule that if you don't have a hat, if you don't have sun cream on, then you can't play outside. So that's kind of ingrained into them. But in England, in Britain, it's not really something that we think about. So in this video, I want to talk about some of the mistakes that British people make as they come to Australia, so that hopefully you watch this and don't do it yourself. Now, the next point, if you go for a swim back in England, or even if you go to like Europe and go to Spain or Greece, usually the waves will never go higher than say like knee height. The first time I went to the beach in Bondi, I got absolutely smashed by a wave, and that is pretty standard in Bondi. The waves are really strong. They can go like higher than you are, and it feels like you're hitting a brick wall. And I realized that I was just getting absolutely pummeled by the waves, and I look around and most people are like diving under the waves. And this is, in a general point, is something that we don't really get exposed to, and especially if you grow up in somewhere like Manchester like me, not near the beach, is like ocean safety, like how to dive under a wave. And the big one that gets a lot of backpackers is the rips. So they call it in Bondi the backpacker rip, I think, which is when a like powerful current pulls people away, and before you know it, you're really pushed out to sea. And this happens in like beaches all over Australia. Yeah, I think it's pretty important. If you're going to live in Australia, going to move to Australia, you kind of have to learn about what you should do if you get into that situation, and realize that if you go way outside of the city and go for a swim, you have to be very careful because there's no lifeguards there. And if you get pulled out into a rip and you don't know what to do, then you pretty much got no chance. But yeah, that's how you can usually spot as well, a non-Australian, is that people swim outside the flags, and then the next thing you know, you're on Bondi Sea Rescue and you're getting pulled out of the water. One of the most common things that British people think before they move here is that Australia is just like back home. And, you know, they speak the same language, they drive on the same side of the road. Obviously, it was a British colony like a long time ago. But what a lot of people don't realise is how different it is from, even if you compared it to say like the 60s, I imagine, in Australia. It's very like cosmopolitan, multicultural country now, and it's not really like the same Australia as it was, as it's kind of depicted in the media. So yeah, people always comparing it to the UK, and I'm guilty of this. I mean, half my videos are pretty much doing the same thing, but it's very much like its own country, has its own culture, its own history, and is going in like a completely different direction. And the next point is around not respecting the wildlife. So I saw a video that went viral, I think it was like around a year ago now, and I'm pretty sure it was an American tourist who saw like a koala at the side of the road and decided to pick it up and take photos of it. And I think it was like taking it away from its mother or something like that. Yeah, it was a really bad video, and it went viral, and because Australians rightfully take it serious when people use the animals as like props, and, you know, go up to kangaroos and start petting them on the head and things like that. It's not really something you should do, and I think it's actually illegal as well to like interfere with the animals like that. I feel like Australians have a much bigger respect for the wildlife compared to a lot of other countries. Even if you get like snakes or spiders, you know, people wouldn't generally don't like to kill them, especially obviously snakes. As dangerous as they are, you should call someone out to get rid of it and not take matters into your own hands and start, you know, smashing it with a spade or something. And this next point is kind of around going into the remote Australia unprepared, and it's not something I've really considered much because I've not spent much time in the bush or the outback. But as I recently have been on a trip to Mudgee, and I realised how good the highways are, but as soon as you get off those, you kind of need like four-wheel drive. And now I understand why like four-wheel drives are so popular in Australia, because if you're going anywhere off the kind of main path, you're going to need one. But yeah, I think, you know, if you go out into those areas with not prepared for, you know, fuel, for how much water you have, if your car is likely to break down, it's a really dangerous country to be doing that in. And it's similar to the ocean, like you're putting other people in danger as well if you go out there unprepared.